How are you, brother? I'm glad to see you.
It's good to see you too. We're recording this on the day where we just found out that Hulk Hogan died.
Can you believe that?
No, it's crazy. It's also, everyone says things come in three. I mean, not to like make
Oh,
light of it, but you're talking Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, and Hulk Hogan, like three icons of my youth that just gone in a week.
doesn't it? There's a lot of things that make us face our mortality, but boy, when they're icons of youth, you're like,
It's
oh
it's
man,
something, and it's and
yeah.
in people your own age that you're just like, wait a minute, that person was 2 years older than me or a year older than me. Like that's crazy. So it is something, man. Of course, Ozzy. I was never old enough to go see Ozzy live when it was like Bark at the
Right.
Moon and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that era. But he was obviously loving horror and kind of tying into what we're talking about now, like the kind of satanic influence
Yes.
on stuff that we were into. Ozzy was like the god of all things Satan.
What 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 was it about? I mean, I'm a decade older than you, but we overlapped in our youth a little bit in terms of what we grew up around. Everything was like the devil made him do it. Oh, that song's about the devil, and he like what? I feel like that doesn't happen today as much, and that's the really sort of the focus is talking about that amazing, that iconic sort of moment in New Jersey. Is that where that happens?
In New Jersey, yeah, it's a four-part docuseries about this horrible murder that happened in 1988 in Jefferson Township, New Jersey. And I grew up in Boston, so it was far enough from where I was, but close enough that it affected all the kids like me. And that it was this altar boy, Tommy Sullivan, 14 years old, who says he's going to write a report. Everyone's like, you have to do it on religion. And he asks if he can do it on Satanism, claiming that's a religion. And he's in a Catholic school. And the nun, the head of it, Sister Philomena, was like, yeah, okay. And then within 6 weeks, this guy is like writing things in his diary of, I'm going to kill my parents. I'm going to do this to be closer to Satan. Lights his house on fire, bashes the mother's head in with weights in the basement, and then kills himself in a manner that is still unexplained to this day. It's almost like he took a pocket knife or a small knife, slit his throat ear to the point where the head was fully back, like he almost decapitated himself. So no one's like, how could you actually, like, as soon as you cut yourself, like, how could you actually cut all the way through to do what you did at that point? There's sort of no explanation for it to this day. So, um, a friend of mine, Brandon Morgan, grew up there and knew Tommy Sullivan, and we're the same age. And we remembered it. It basically started the Satanic Panic, where, we were all into Ozzy and we were into horror movies and
Yeah.
Iron Maiden. And it was cool because it was so like counter. It wasn't, not all of it was played on MTV. Like, remember, if an Ozzy video played on MTV, it was very controversial.
Yes. Oh,
And
100%. Yes.
yeah, and there was sort of a reaction. I think after the Reagan assassination, that's when
Mm.
the MPAA really went after horror movies, because the slasher boom started in 78 and kind of went up to 81, 82. And then when Reagan was assassinated, the first horror movie after it was My Bloody Valentine. And, when violent things happened in the culture at the time, people say, well, what can we do? Well, it's these violent movies. These slasher films are out of control. People are seeing too much violence. It's making people violent because it's pre-violent video games. So everything suddenly starts getting cut back. And then that mid-'80s violence was kind of the Rambo Schwarzenegger violence, where you know what it was? It was like, you were right there at the epicenter of like everything was teen movies, comedies. And if it was violence, it was like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, with a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
But there was this kind of parallel track of kind of punk rock and Repo Man and all these things that if you were
Yeah.
into counter, like that was like
Yeah.
cool, but you had to go to the one record store to hear it, or college radio was where you heard a lot of that stuff, and
Yeah.
the Dead
Yeah.
Kennedys, and where it was like make them die slowly. You'd go to the video store and rent the most violent movies you could. So all of a sudden, movies that we never had access to as children with VHS boom of 82, 83, 84, like you're seeing the most violent stuff like you can't even imagine, because you couldn't get into a movie theater to see it. But at the video store, it was your buddy who worked there. You could rent 10 tapes. They didn't care. So there was this kind of thing brewing where parents were not really paying attention to what their kids were watching. Cable TV started, we were all kind of latchkey kids where they had these ads. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
Yeah.
And then this thing happens where this kid starts listening to heavy metal and, everyone starts freaking out going, oh my gosh, it's Satan, but it's Satan in a community where there's no violence. There's no crime. I mean, this is Jefferson Township, very Catholic. There's almost no crime. And then you kind of look into the history of the town, and 100 years earlier, there was someone who was like this, a Satanist who lived there. This guy, Richard Cross, in 1905, built Cross Castle and like builds this like full, like eyes wide shut Satan. Like he starts bringing people out from New York City. Like he's like one of the richest people in New York City, comes over from England, and he brings all these like satanic manuscripts from the old world and starts having like eyes wide shut orgies. And then the whole place burns down. But then the books that he had wound up like in the library somehow. So it's crazy. But this guy, Tommy Sullivan, in doing his research, actually starts getting hold of some of these books that were like true Satanist things that came over from Europe through this guy, Richard Cross. So you start going, well, wait a minute. Were these really haunted things? But basically there was no explanation. So everyone's just going, it was Satan, it was Satan. And then kids like me walking around, in my Texas Chainsaw Massacre t-shirt, they're like, oh, you're the next one. You for sure are the killer. Like these movies and video games are making us want to kill. So then by the time, it was like Dan Quayle. And I remember in 1990, violence was like out of movies. Night of the Living Dead, the remake, they made them cut all the violence. So it was just this very interesting time where this one murder, it's like, so what I loved about the show is that, and kind of exploring this, and Brandon was amazing. He lived it and he wanted to do a podcast about it. So he did a podcast. And a lot of people wouldn't talk to him. They were like, I don't want to be a part of it. This is like, we've tried to forget this. This was 1988. The town is still scarred from it. There's stuff inexplicable. The people all still live there. But Brandon grew up there, knew them, did a very respectful podcast. And then they heard it and they were like, oh, I actually have more information on this. So we got it, the TV, the docuseries. So now Sister Philomena, who was the teacher, the police officers that were there, the cops that found him the first time, people that have never spoken about it since 1988 are on camera for the first time. Right. So it's a pretty amazing series. But for me, it sort of sums up this moment that you and I, we all experienced it if you were alive at the time of like, satanic panic.
Oh, I mean, dude, do you remember when you got your hands on the Faces of Death for the first time?
Dude, that tape was dangerous. The danger of even watching it, you felt like you were going to get arrested. It was like a snuff film.
It was, and you'll love this. Guess who, of course, brought it into our 16-year-old, learner's permit, barely driving a car, ditching first period high school crowd? Charlie Sheen.
Of course. I mean, why does that not surprise me?
I mean, if you're going to watch Faces of Death in someone's bedroom as a teenager, you want it to be Charlie.
You want it to be Charlie Sheen. But then Charlie went farther. Like, didn't he get in trouble over having guinea pig? Because like guinea pig became the next level. There's a Japanese videotape that was going around called Guinea Pig, and it's shot on videotape, and it's a girl on a table and a guy just cutting her up, and everyone's like, it's real. And apparently, like, Charlie then showed, and this is a couple of years later when the effects got better, Charlie Sheen showed, that was the rumor, was that Charlie Sheen showed in the FBI and people came in. So when you see Guinea Pig now, the making of Guinea Pig is attached to it. So it's like, here's Guinea Pig and then here's how, but it got to the point where there wasn't even, it's just like, yeah, let's just cut up a woman. It got really, really crazy.
Well, and then it spawns Alien Autopsy.
Of course. Yes. No, I mean, all that stuff, like, but thinking about that time when you got a videotape back then, it was like the tape itself was evil. And I think that there was kind of, it sort of feels like this end of kind of 80s innocence. This murder turns everything. And then, warning labels start on records. Like all of a sudden you have like, Congress is discussing this. This wasn't just a murder that happened. It was like, people were, there were whole town meetings where everyone's just like, how did we let Satan into our community? Like what? Oh. And this feeling that you truly, no matter what you do, there is no protecting your children. And that people thought like, oh, if you went into New York City, that's where the bad element was. Or that's where, trouble was. But if you sent your kids to Catholic school, but it was, that everything was going to be fine. But the idea was that he'd listened to music or watched movies or read books. And it was a transformation within 6 weeks that this kid suddenly decided he was pledging his soul to Satan. And we have his journals. Like, they got his original journals handwritten at 14. They're in the show, where you see the stuff of like what he writes before and after. And it's terrifying. And you have, Sister Philomena, who saw him the day before he did this to his mother, and what the conversations were like, and the things that he said. She's like, I felt like I was in the room with the devil. This wasn't him. And then trying to understand, and now anything like that goes kind of under the category of, oh, it's a mental health issue.
Yes, right.
Was
exactly.
this kid bipolar? Was it?
Yep.
And we go into that too. Like,
Right,
what was,
right.
there's questions about the father and the father's temper. You have other people like, yeah, his dad really had a temper. And, when, it's like, when you could see Tommy, the dad was letting him have it. So there's like all these kind of hints that you're like, was this kid, just kind of in the 80s, when it was a time when fathers would hit their kids? We don't know. The father would not go, it's not part of it. So it's a really interesting time. But for me, it just symbolizes like, dude, I remember, I was there. Look, I never told you this. I saw Hotel New Hampshire in the theater. In the theater. I was 10 years old.
I think that movie was made by Satanists, I think.
But you and Nastasia Kinski was like one of those, like, it was like, wow, that was the coolest thing I was like completely blown away. And every one of your movies I saw, they were events. It was like all those films of that time. Like, even we were really into hockey. So Youngblood, like all of them, like every single one of yours. And then by the time you get to the end of your teenage years, everything is like, Satan is going to get you. Like, this stuff is evil. Like I look at the kind of, being from 10 years old to 17 years old, when movies and music and video games was Atari, and like a heavy metal album and a rock record with cool artwork.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the 80s, it was like, this stuff is evil. It will lead to you, beating your parents to death with weights, burning your house down, and slitting your throat. It's like, that was never even a consideration. And of course, the kids like me, we were the ones, my friend Jeff Rendell, like you and Charlie Sheen, I had Jeff Rendell, who I wrote Thanksgiving with, and we watched all our horror movies together.
Yeah, for sure.
And we were the kids that the fingers were pointing out, like, watch out for those guys. They're gonna, they might chop your head off. I mean, they still kind of do, but.
Did you have Ouija boards and shit like that?
Dude, there was nothing better than a Ouija board. Like Ouija boards.
And they were sold like, first of all, you can't find them now. You cannot find them. And if you do, and maybe justifiably, there's like a stick. Like I wouldn't fuck with a Ouija board.
No way.
No way I want any part of it. But I think there's something about young adolescent boys and men, like, we want to see the darkness.
Yes.
Like, listen, it's darkness on the edge of town. Bruce Springsteen. I mean, that's like a part of, it's a coming of age, Joseph Campbell thing that goes back to the proving yourself, annals of time. But like, when we were kids, the Ouija board was one, and we just crack it out. Like in the middle of the daytime, go down the basement, turn out the lights, start talking shit to the Ouija board.
Well, the Ouija board was made by Parker Brothers. It wasn't like you have to go to a witchcraft store. You went to a toy store. It was like Monopoly, Twister, and Ouija. It was sold as that.
Yes.
Which is crazy to think about that now. But but I think what you're saying is, it's like, unless there's like deep programming in our DNA where the men in the tribe have to go out on their own and leave the cave, and kill something and come back to become it. There is something about when you get to that age of like 12, 13, 14, where you have to go through some kind of trial by fear and prove it. And in Let the Devil In, there was this one where Richard Cross's castle was, there was this area called Clinton Road that was completely haunted. And Weird New Jersey's done a lot of things on it, but there's a dead kid on Clinton Road, and it's like pitch black at night. And it was like, these kids would dare each other to go down Clinton Road. So, and then go to the ruins of Cross Castle, which was a Druid temple. So every town had that thing of that haunted road where the dead kid lived. And like, it was all before we had security cameras and night vision. And there was such mystery. Like, you really, if you went to overnight camp, it was like there was either Cropsey or Three Fingered Willie. There was like the local, kid that had been drowned. The Jason Voorhees was a true story. So it was a kind of a magical time where you couldn't sort of disprove any of that stuff. And we didn't have like, if you saw found footage, you thought it was real because you couldn't just Google who was in it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the Ouija board was such a seminal part because like you're either going to talk to you don't know a lot of dead people at that age. So you're talking to grand people or some kid who died in the other town or whatever that local ghost is. You would try to conjure that
Or you're
ghost.
talking to the devil.
You're talking to the devil.
You're talking to the devil. What I learned about the Ouija board recently is after World War, and I'm sure you know this, but after the fad of post World War I, when so many husbands and fathers and brothers were massacred in the horrible, that war, that all the widows and mothers and sisters were so desperate to talk to their loved ones that brought in the era of psychics and Ouija board. And obviously I believe in some of it, but that there would be charlatans would routinely go through villages and be like, I have this gift, I can talk to the beyond. And there'd be hundreds of thousands of widows and moms who just lost their sons and husbands and fathers on the front and were desperate for and that started that industry. And that's where that all comes post World War I with a generation of family lost to the war.
I didn't know that. I knew that vampires and vampire movies and vampire stories came, like the vampire fad happened post World War I, where people were coming back, drained and like with no limbs and eating blood. Like the horror of war gave birth to all those 1920s, Nosferatu, Frankenstein, like that. But really kind of the vampire craze really took off with the horrors of war. There's always some sort of something that's happening in the culture. Like, and we went into that on History of Horror, where you could really see the sort of zombie craze and Walking Dead with kind of the homeless boom of the late 2000s and 2010s. And kind of, if you look at the correlation between tent cities, like I don't ever remember, do you ever remember Skid Row being what it was growing up? It was like there was a couple homeless people in Venice Beach, a couple downtown, but it wasn't tent cities. When the mortgage crisis hit, people were thrown out of their homes, and all of a sudden the homeless population, after the 2008 mortgage crisis, the homeless population skyrockets. So people are now driving through cities with people that are just kind of destitute, wandering around, combined with, drugs coming in and black tar heroin being so cheap, and now fentanyl. Like the zombie craze, it's like the horror movies always tend to reflect. But yeah, the Ouija board, I wouldn't even take the chance on it now. I don't want to be right.
What is, other than your own movies, give me your top horror. First, let me ask you this. Night of the Living Dead, one of the great movies of all time. What makes me laugh about it and is amazing and is fucking frightening and I can't understand it is the zombies are petrifying, but they move like snails. You could outrun any of those. I'm coming, and they're like 1 step, 2 step. Like you could easily outrun them.
Yes.
But the fact that they're coming at that pace is frightening. Why is that way more scary than if they were just running towards you?
Because it's the feeling that you can't ever sleep. And no matter what you do, they're going to catch you eventually. It's just this feeling of death. It's like somehow in our subconscious, like you and I, we can take care of ourselves. We can go to the gym. I'll be like, what's Rob Lowe's skincare routine? I need that right away. I want to look like him. And like, you always like you're my like skin icon. It's like, man, I got to look like Rob. He looks incredible. Like just taking care. It's like, no matter what, it's like this tsunami that's coming for us. And then one day it's going to take you. So you can have the fast pace. Edgar Wright has a great point that like with the fast running zombies, there's a certain fitness level. Like you don't see any, until there were VFX, like any like hugely fat, fast running zombies. Like the slow ones are all inclusive. Like everybody gets to be a zombie in them. But it is this thing of like, it's the Hitchcock with the bomb under the table, where people are having a conversation, he shows you the bomb, and then they're like, no, look behind you. Or the birds, where Tippi Hedren smoking a cigarette, and you just see the crows starting to build up on the jungle gym behind her. And you're like, look behind you. One bird you could outrun, but the entire sky full of them attacking, you're never going to do it. So, but I also think with Night of the Living Dead, what's so ingenious, first, obviously George Romero creating all of those roles, and he didn't copyright it. That's why he didn't get the money for it. Shoot him in the head, you get bit, you turn into one. But prior to Night of the Living Dead, zombies were all about kind of slavery and a mad scientist on an island in Haiti taking the local population and bringing them back the dead for his own purposes. He was going to build a race of slaves. It was all about slavery. Then Romero takes it and he makes it about race, so that you have like a leading, there's like the white people in 1968. It's all about the racial tension, and they're all in this house, and there's like, there's the black male who's in charge, and then the white guy that doesn't want to take orders from him, and then the zombies that are just the great equalizer. They're like, there's no racism in zombies. They're just zombies. So I think to certain audiences, like, it was the terror that that you have to kill your child, that your child's not your child anymore. But, for George Romero to make that movie at the height of the civil rights movement, I think it scared people in ways, that they didn't even understand how they were being scared. But I do think on a very base level, it's this feeling that we can't outrun death, that it's going to come for us no matter what. And that even if you sleep, when you wake up, they're going to be right there. There's sort of like, it's almost like you let your guard down and then it's too late, because one's there. It doesn't matter if you're like in a closet and there's 30 of them, you're not going to escape. So I think that, and that's what great horror movies can do. But again, it's like, and we saw that. We always saw them as movies. We always saw it as magic tricks. Like I never saw, when someone's being sawed in half in pieces, or the Wizard of Gore, I was like, oh, wow, how'd they do that? But, once those murders happened in New Jersey, everything changed. I'm telling you, like, it was as if you weren't allowed to enjoy that stuff anymore, because it was all tinged with this thing of, what's wrong with you? Are you going to kill somebody? Is this just activating some part of your DNA that's going to turn you? Or have you opened the door to Satan? Are these albums and is this music? Are these movies? Is this artwork? Are these books? Is this a doorway to the devil? And I always thought it was an outlet for creativity. So it's really interesting.
Well, it's funny. I saw, I was in the gym, working out, trying to keep away the zombie of death, and looked up and saw the CNN Chiron go across the screen that Ozzy had died. And in the Chiron, this is, you work your whole life, you do everything you do, you're famous for whatever you're famous for, you accomplish whatever you're famous for, and at the end of the day, it's coming down to the Chiron. So what is the Chiron going to be? And which I think about a lot. The Chiron comes out. Ozzy Osbourne, legendary, passes away, known for his hits, this, that, and biting, and of course, biting on the Chiron, biting the head of a live bat, which he later claimed he thought was a toy, and forced him to go immediately to the hospital for rabies. That's the Chiron. That's it. That's on CNN coming across, of all the things they could write. First of all, I don't think he ever really did that. I'm not sure that's true. And if he did do it, it's like we're pros. We're in show business. We have SAG guards. He's an ASCAP. He's a fucking performer.
Of course.
It's a bit. He did it. It's a bit. And even today, in his death, people still believe that is for something other than theatrics.
No, it's crazy. I mean, that's the power of the urban legend and the myth of storytelling. And, I think in 1983, I mean, I used to have, like, there was a kid in my school wearing an Ozzy Osbourne t-shirt, and he would have kids like spit on a Mike and Ike, and he would eat it. It was supposed to say, or eat a bug and go, I'm Ozzy. Like, and even yesterday, like, like, Ozzy died, bats everywhere are safe. Like, someone texted that to me. It's just like, there's nothing you can do. It's like, but also I think at the time that was kind of he probably thought it was hilarious. I don't know, like, for a while,
sure.
From like 82 to 90, then it gets annoying. Then you have to explain that someone threw a real dead bat on stage and he bit the head off. Like, I don't think he really bit the head off a live bat, but that's just, by the way, it's like, what's her name? Cass Elliot didn't die choking on a ham sandwich, but that's like an urban legend that's it. There's whatever. My friends and I always joke, like, who's going to get the death headline? Like, if you and I were in a car crash, like, Rob Lowe and three others dead in car crash. Like, who gets the death headline? As soon as you get in the car, it's like, okay, who's going to get it's definitely going to be you.
Okay, here's my alternative version of that game. In what when I'm acting, when I'm on a project and I'm doing something, whenever I am doing a scene where I have to exit a room, And particularly if I have to, God forbid, turn around to the door frame, I'm like, oh yeah, I just shot my in memoriam clip.
That's the best. Thank you. You just and that was it.
I was like, that's it.
Good night, everyone.
I fucking, that's 100% it. That's the in memoriam clip. I just did it.
Yeah.
And then you think of that, like if you're lucky, you get another clip. Like if you're a baller, you get one more addition. You get the like, oh, it's so sad they're gone clip. And then you might get like a baller clip of like, yeah, he fucking threw down. Like,
yeah.
And then you think of what is that going to be? For sure, my bro, we know what yours is. We know what
it's gonna be a baseball bat.
It's
probably
it's fucking baseball bat. It's
there's
baseball
no
bat.
way.
You're fucked. It's you're swinging the baseball bat.
But at least you get one. That's all right. Like,
yes.
I feel like that's a great one. Like,
bro.
I think they'll go through the clips and be like, well, his movies are too disgusting. And what are we going to put him from Piranha 3D? Like, now let's do the bat. Boom.
I mean,
in memoriam.
By the way, not to be morbid, but if that were come to pass, that might be the single greatest clip I could imagine anybody having.
Wow, thank you, Rob.
Really?
Well, I think the advantage that I have really is that I've just basically done one movie and then retired from acting. So I don't want to do anything else that might screw up my chance at having a really good in memoriam clip. You know, like that's it. But look, at least I'm known for something. So I'll take it. Take it.
It's first of all, that movie, Inglourious, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
And I've never worked with Quentin, always wanted to. Shout out to Quentin if you're listening. There's so many, for me, like Quentin's movies are never perfect. Like he's never made a perfect movie, but what he does do is he gives you so many set pieces that are fucking amazing that it doesn't matter. Like, we can all name perfect movies. Like we talk about, whatever your perfect movie is, and there's many, many, many of them. Shawshank Redemption, Rosemary's Baby, whatever the fuck they are. But you don't talk about them. You don't go, how about the part where you don't quote them? You don't talk about, hey, how about the moment when, or how about this scene, and that fucking. You just don't. I've never talked about by the way, I've seen the Shawshank Redemption twice, maybe. It's a perfect movie. Last Picture Show, perfect movie. I don't talk about it. Citizen Kane.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And when you do it, you're watching it. You're just like, and Quentin called it a hangout movie. He's like, you just put on the movie, you just want to hang out with these guys. And you're like, and what Quentin did was he really brought back what the 70s had, which is just great writing, great characters, and letting a scene breathe. And when he was shooting Bastards, he was a little bit like, I'm kind of worried that the first 25, 30 minutes of the movie, it's just the scene in French and German where it's just three people talking. And I'm just like, dude, this is the best. I was like, if you would put this on stage, not only we have the Tony, they'd give you a Pulitzer Prize for this writing. The squirrel, the saucer of milk versus a rat, the saucer, like, the dairy farmer, it's perfect. So then when we got to the theater, he's like, oh, finally, I can move the camera around. He's like, everything else is just, but you think of the tavern scene, the Mexican standoff, the way he just, because he thinks every character is a 360-degree character, as if he thinks of the whole movie from their point of view and the whole world. Like he'll spend years building out what that world is and what that person was doing before and everything leading up, even if they have one or two lines. Like, so his movies are true in the way that James Cameron thinks of every detail of the flora and fauna of Avatar. Nothing is by accident. He understands every creature, how they interact with every plant, the whole system. Like he just has that kind of mind for it. Quentin does that with his world and with his characters. And I was just lucky enough to play one. I remember the first day of, we were going to do a rehearsal with the Bastards. And he's like, close your scripts. And he's like, what did you think when Aldo approached you to be in the Bastards? And where are you from? And we just had to talk for hours in character about our characters. And there was one person who's like, well, I was just like, I only had two lines. I didn't really think about that. I just thought of those lines. And that guy was gone the next day. And we're like, whoa, guess there's only 9 of us. Like, Quentin's like, what do you think this is? Like, how do you know? Like, not everyone talks all the time, but how you relate to these guys. You put no thought into it. He's like, I didn't think I had to. So I was like, it's that kind of thing where he just wants to know he wants you to know, even if it's never discussed, like the audience has to feel like we all know how long we've known each other, who they, in the way that you do when you hang out with a group of friends. If a dog walked by, if a girl walked by, if a weirdo, like, you know how every single person would react. Quentin knows that. And it's in the writing, but it's also, he's great at kind of picking interesting people that you wouldn't, I was not the obvious choice for that. And then, that's what made it, I think interesting, was that I had to go like 1,000% to make it, it's like, Jesus. I mean, we never, and then for him to cast Christoph Waltz, who's a complete, no one knew who he was. And this guy's just like out of nowhere at 54 years old wins the Academy Award because Quentin had spent $2 million of his own money in prep. And he's like, if I don't find Londa, I'm going to shut it down and not make the movie. And there were so many actors that wanted to play that part. And Quentin's like, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. This guy has to be, I don't have him yet. I kind of want an unknown. I don't want you to know who this guy is. I don't want you to have preconceived notions of him. And then it was like the other people were like, oh yeah, there's this new kid out of Ireland, like Michael Fassbender. And they're like, oh, this guy from Germany, Daniel Bruhl, he just did Goodbye Lenin. And this other guy, August Deal, is supposed to be good. Look what Till Schweiger's doing. And this girl, Melanie Laurent, gave a great audition. Like, and oh, Diane Kruger wants to be in it. That's so cool. Like but Diane was big. It was like Diana Brow with the biggest stars, but everyone else was like, wow, these European actors. We'd sit there and we were just like, man, I've never seen actors, any actor like can do, like actors that had one or two lines became like major stars in Germany. So.
I'm glad that you brought that up. When people talk about acting and they talk about that famous quote that there are no small roles, only small actors.
Oh yeah.
Like if I ever do talks about that, I show that sequence, the Bear Jew sequence, because whoever that fucking German on his knees,
Richard Sammel,
who when he goes, I see you're wearing a medal. What's the medal for? And bravery. Dude, his line reading of Bravery is among the best performances in the movie.
I know. He's an amazing actor.
And I don't
know.
Very
special guy. Like
I can't tell you why, other than that motherfucker almost steals that entire scene with one line.
I know.
It's insane.
And for me as an actor, it makes it, it makes it so much easier. I remember I'd heard that, like, isn't it scary acting with those actors? It's like, no, when actors are that great, your reaction you just level up, you focus, you change. Yeah. Also, shooting on film, once you hear the clap and that, you're like, okay, it's go time. Like there's something that clicks in you when you're burning film, and not just like, well, it's digital. Let's just try it this way. When Quentin doesn't shoot multiple cameras, so many things I kind of took from Quentin, like there's no like 2 or 3 cameras. Like he lights for a proper close up and he moves the camera close. It's not like, oh, we get a wide and then do a telephoto lens, because then you're lit for the wide. Right. He moves the camera close and he lights you. So and he stands next to camera. So your whole performance is going to change. And Richard Sammel is a fantastic actor. Quentin's like, this guy has a face out of a Sergio Leone film. He looks like he's right out of Once Upon a Time in the West or Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And that is the truth. And Christoph said that about, there are no small parts, only small actors. That when you have someone like Richard Sammel that has one line, Death of Killing Jews, and he goes, bravery. You're like, wow. That guy's whole career, his whole character in that one word. And that's the power of a great actor, is that, there are actors that are like, why aren't I talking more? And as you know, they do that thing where they speak a little slower so they get more time on camera. And I'm always like, I call it camera time. I'm like, oh God, can you get enough of the camera time? Like you're getting yourself cut out of the movie when you do that. I don't mean speed through it, but don't keep score of how many lines and how many seconds you're in the movie. Just focus on delivering that like it's the only thing you'll ever do in your lifetime. It's really, but it is crazy. And I remember the director of Cannibal Holocaust, Roger Deodato, amazing director. He was the assistant director of Roberto Rossellini and Sergio Corbucci. So he learned from the master of on-screen violence and the master of Italian neorealism. And then he makes Cannibal Holocaust and The Barbarian Twins, like some great movies. But he told me, he was like, he goes, big actor, big star, no problem. Beginner actor, no problem. middle actor that thinks they deserve to be big actor is most problem you'll ever have in your career. And he's totally right. Like sometimes you want to get a star, you know that, oh, this person has some credits, I like them. And they come in and it's just like, whoa, why is this person thought they'd be cool? They're just causing all the problems. They're saying all their lines really slow. They want extra bits. I was like, but the scene works. I've spent months crafting this. It's going to work great. And you're going to be great in it. Just trust that but that's exactly the scene when we see Richard Samuel bravery. Guy steals it. He's incredible.
The other thing is, and Walt's obviously it's a storied Hollywood legend, but that, and it's not a debut. He's like, the other part of it, he's a journeyman actor, working, sort of in Germany and German, Austrian projects, and then gets this. But it's one of those moments as an audience member that you never forget in movies. And how many of those do we get in a lifetime, really? Where you remember where you were? And I turned to my wife and go, he's winning the Academy Award this year. Literally, he's 5 lines into this scene. The movie hasn't even been reviewed yet. It's like opening weekend. You're like, oh, this guy's winning the Oscar this year.
We knew it. And we were so happy for him because he was the least one who cared. Like he didn't want to, Quentin sort of kept him from hanging out with us so that we all wouldn't be like so we were like a little afraid of him.
Amazing.
And he said when he was studying for the part, he wasn't, I don't even speaking out of school saying this, he just didn't listen to music. He didn't do anything. He just read the part. That was it. Nothing. He was so focused on Londa that all he would think of is how can I make the most out of every single moment? And he's the loveliest person. I adore Christoph. And
he's humor. Such a nice man.
Such a nice guy. But it was incredible to see that. Like, and another actor that's sort of having that moment is Walt Goggins. Like you see Walt Goggins, like we saw him in Hateful Eight. We loved him on Justified. Then in White Lotus, when Sam Rockwell is delivering that monologue.
Dude, he's stealing it from Sam Rockwell. He's stealing that scene. He's stealing
his reactions are subtle of like, there's like 100 things going through his brain he's trying to say and not say. You're just like, and this is like the best writing, the best acting. And you're just watching him like do these sort of little trying to like the amount of, and in making it look effortless was just like the amount of things going on in that. It's like, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's
like when DiCaprio Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when he has the stutter and then the meltdown in the trailer, and then he has to be Caleb, and then he's vulnerable. It's like he's playing like 6 different roles at the same time. At the level of skill that these actors have, you're just like, whoa. Rosamund Pike is like that in Gone Girl. You're like, wow. Or Saltburn, you're like, oh my God, these actors are just, I've never seen anything like it.
It's so inspiring. I get, look, you get to a point in life, no matter what you do, you've seen a lot. You've done a lot, and I don't want to say you get jaded, but you've seen a lot. So nothing is, less and less is surprising, less and less is transportive. And so when you do see stuff like that, and it's so funny, every performance you just mentioned, I 100% concur. It reminds you of why you do what you do and what you hope to do and what you hope you get a chance to do. And I mean, dude, those performances are next. How about another performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that I love is Kurt Russell when he finally has to shut Leo up, who's auditioning Brad as a stunt guy. He'll do that. He'll do a stunt fall. He'll do a thing. I don't really care. It's nobody. And he's going on. And Kurt's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. And then finally goes, hey, man, I don't like the guy. I don't like the vibe he brings to a set. There's something about, again, that line reading, that moment is so lived in.
I know.
It's
when he just goes, fucking guy killed his wife. You're like, it's Kurt. Well, that's what Kurt Russell is the greatest because he's just been doing it since he was a kid. He's never bad. He's always whether it's The Thing, whether it's Jack Burton, and whether it's, John Ruth, and Quentin really appreciates Kurt and everything he has. And Quentin has such reverence for that period and that history and those guys that and that's exactly it, is that Kurt can come into a movie, you forget, it's like he could easily be the star of the movie, but he's coming in to play this character and he's just like, and Pitt, and like Pitt, when you see Pitt, when he's just like, I'm going in there on this, and he goes, and this Ain't Stopping Me. Just the way he flicks the screen with Dakota Fanning is like, fine. Like that whole scene with Bruce Dern, it's so creepy at Spawn Ranch. And that's Quentin, is he like lets you, he's in no rush. David Lynch does that too, like in his own way. Like Quentin's got his own rhythm, his own pace. He's here for the characters, and you can either hang out with him or not. Like that's why we're here. We're here to hang out with these characters and watch them do their thing and be with them in this moment in time, completely absorbed in it. And that's all that matters. There's nothing else. And then ultimately that's what it is. And that's like, look, I mean, you've had, a storied career and had like so many different almost reinventions for different generations. Like some people would only know you from West Wing. I know you from that period, but like, it's like the image of you and Stasi Kinski in bed and me being like in a theater at the Chestnut Hill Cinema, being looking around with my parents being like, am I allowed to be seeing this? And it was like so comedic. And I was like, the brother and sister are having sex. Like it was so like, there was like energy. The whole theater was laughing. Like we wanted to see you guys do it. And then we were like, oh no, there's something. But then, going to see all the like kind of 80s movies at the same time, it's like we go to the theater to see, the Youngbloods, like all your movies. And then we would go to the video store to rent like Faces of Death. It was like two different viewing experiences.
Yeah.
Like, the theaters with your friends, and then there was like you and your friends at a sleepover because VCRs were available for the first time. So it's like there were two different parallel movie going experiences. And then, that's what I was so interested in doing with The Devil, and not to keep bringing back that, but like that thing ended. Like it was just like that thing you sort of did at Charlie Sheen's house.
It's over.
Suddenly wasn't. It was like overnight, people were like, this is actually dangerous. Like we told you. And the worst part is the parents were like, we were right. See? Because we could be like, guys, it's stupid. It's makeup. It's a movie. We know that it's fake. It's just horror movies. It's just heavy metal. They're just screaming about, they're singing about chopping people up. Like, remember The Mentors? It was like some kid albums like The Mentors. They were like the most inappropriate, filthiest band. And you're like, it was all a joke. And then this stuff happened. Exactly. And you were like, oh my God. Now, like, people are looking at us like we might be murderers. So it's really interesting.
I'm psyched to see it. I can't wait to see it. It's gonna be super sick. What else am I gonna ask you, man? I'm just trying to think here. I know what I want to ask you. Is this true? I get these documents when I have people on.
It's all true. All of it.
It can't be true, dude. Get this. To fund his films while in college, he worked as an online cyber sex operator for Penthouse, posing as a woman.
I did. I was.
What?
I mean, first of all, you would call that catfishing. But back in 1992, I walked into my friend's room and I was like, what is that? And it was a computer term. I was like, this is called a modem. It's 800 baud, B-A-U-D. And 800 speed was like a fax machine. And you could type a character and it would like be there a second later. And it was like a terminal. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, well, Penthouse is paying me, to do this. I'm like, what are you getting? He's like, $12 an hour. I was like, wait, what? He's like, you just have to make up a character, pretend you're a girl. And these like people want you to type like dirty messages to them. I'm like, wait, but do they know you're guys? Like, of course not. But Penthouse knows they're only hiring guys because they know that guys are the only ones, sick enough to do what other guys want. But it was just literally text messages. So I go, but who's on the internet? This is like, what is the internet? And they're like, it's doctors and scientists that get like terminal access that like, so it was like rich New York City people and like doctors and scientists and like very wealthy people that were spending 50 cents an hour or like 50 cents a minute or $1 a minute to talk to us. So these guys are spending like hundreds of dollars a night. So I was like, I got to do this. I got to do this. So I'd be like, I can't really explain what we said without being too graphic, but we would have like 20 people in my dorm room all around going, yeah, cover your tits. Like, just like, no, don't do that. You're not that kind. No, make him wait for it. And then I remember going back to Boston to my parents' house and I was typing like 100 words a minute. My parents were like, where did you learn to type so fast? I was like, I don't know. I've been at screenwriting school, mom and dad, all the money you're spending on my education. But the last night, I'll never forget it. Like I had all these different characters. One was Mireille, the beautiful bisexual French girl who couldn't understand why it was illegal to sunbathe topless in Central Park, like
Amazing.
beyond her. She kept getting arrested. Then I was like Tammy or something, who was like a heavy metal like groupie who had like had sex with all the members of, you know, Guns N' Roses and Poison. Like that was her whole thing, was like being like just like a heavy metal sex maniac. And just other ones. Then there was Allison, who was like divorced and she was a writer. And so she was trying to meet characters, and she would like try to be sexy, but be bad at it. And the men were like, Allison, I can't have sex with you. I respect you too much. Like these guys, and I'd be like being different girls. So I'd see how they were. The same guy was, they didn't know it was the same person. And then the last night, we were quitting. We had to like return the terminals. It was like over for summer break. I was like, we're not going to bring this back to Newton and do this with my parents because your line's busy. My parents would try to call you between 9 and 3. Your phone's just like, are you on the phone all night? Like, what's going on? Because it was a busy signal. If remember, like dial-up modems were 56,000. This was 800. So the last night we went on and we're like, we're going to tell them. We're telling them we're guys. And we did it. I remember us sitting there like Dr. Strangelove hitting the button. Like we typed out the full confession and we were like wrestling, going, do it, no. And we hit send. And we told them like, we're guys. We you know, Penthouse only hires guys, you know. And the guy goes, ha ha, you're so funny. Tammy, shut up. Tell me what you're wearing. We're like, no, I'm serious, dude. We're actually guys. It's like, Tammy, you are the best, or whatever. Like they wouldn't believe it. And there was one guy that started like getting cash from someone. I was like, oh, this could get crazy. If I was like, my parents were like, this is so immoral. I was like, I know, but it's funny. And it's like giving me great character ideas. And they were like, I'm like, yeah, okay. It's very like, it's completely catfishing. And it was Penthouse. There were ads in the magazine. It didn't say Mireille. It was like, come talk to our Penthouse pets. If you have a modem, it's, you know, 50 for the cheap price of 50 cents a minute to talk to a girl on the internet. And it was me.
Dude, I
paid for my student films, and here I am directing.
First of all,
I'll reimburse any of the guys, but I was great. I was good at it. I'll tell you that.
I beg you to make that movie.
But now it's like people would be like, why is that a crime? That's like everyone I talk to. Everyone's a phony. Like everyone's like every fake profile. I feel like there'd be nothing shocking about it now. I wanted to for a long time, and people were like, but that's what people do on the internet. Now it's AI. Now it's not even a real person.
But I think that's why now you do it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how did we get here? And you talk about a time when it was so quaint and so unbelievable. And I would watch the shit out of that movie because there's also 10 different great movie versions of it. Like as you're telling the story, I'm like, oh, there's the Paul Schrader version, which is super sick. There's the Alexander Payne version, which is super sick. There's the fucking Seth Rogen version, which is super sick. There's like a bunch of them.
I know. There's this thing. I know we thought of doing it like the single white female Barbet Schroeder kind of like
Barbet Schroeder.
Do like a 90s thriller kind of thing. But it's also about, you know, how the men were like, oh, we have a new way to lie. We can have a double life. It was like, I can hide my identity. It's like American Psycho time.
Yes.
You know, these very rich Wall Street guys and doctors that were like, oh, this is a way for me to cheat that my wife will never know about. It was really like weird. Like it gave me a lot of insight. Everyone's like, where'd you get the ideas for those businessmen in Hostel and stuff? I was like, well, you know, when you pose as that, you see another side of what the so-called professional class that you've been bred, that you grew up in. I grew up around doctors in Boston. My father's a physician, and Boston, Harvard doctors and business people and lawyers. And then you get to New York City and you're like, oh, is this what people are like? Like, why wouldn't you just go out and meet a girl? Like to me, you know, we're in college. We're just like, hey, go to a club, like go out to a bar and meet somebody. Like, but like living a double life and talking from between 1 and 3 in the morning in your apartment and then begging me to come there. Like, I'll give you thousands of dollars in cash. Come meet me. I want to meet you in person. Oh, the other thing is one guy's like, then you'd have to be like, my real name is Alice. I have to quit. One guy did that. He was like, my name is, you know, is like Isabella. My name is Alice. And I can't afford to do this anymore. I have to go back to stripping. I was just doing this to pay my bills for school. And the guy's like, don't leave me. I'll start supplementing you. And he gave him an address and the guy started dropping off like tens of thousands of dollars anonymously. So this guy wouldn't have to go back to stripping. And that's why I was like, that's crazy. there were four of us. And like one guy was like, I was like, I'm not going to like lie to people to get cash. I will take the $12 an hour paycheck, and get, because I love that my check had the Penthouse key on it. I thought that was like hilarious. But when I was at 20 years old, I wasn't, old enough to drink barely. And, but yeah, it got weird, but that was the 90s, It was like there was a dark underbelly. If you wanted to go looking for it, people could hide double lives a lot easier back then.
Now that version that's the Fincher version. I want to see like I want to see the David Fincher iteration.
I might. It's good to know. It's good. It's a good story. It's real.
You have to, please. I'm begging you. You have to do that movie. I mean, very few people have had that. Well, I mean, people obviously have done that, but no filmmakers.
Yeah, it was a weird. I mean, it's almost like, I don't know. Just like I remember seeing the messages coming up and like having to switch characters and talk to like 15 different guys at a time. Because if you're good at it, you get popular. And now people have their regulars. Like, and then someone's like, oh, have you dealt with this guy? Like, this person won't shut up. They just want to ask you about what you're doing, what your day is. I'm like, God, I got to make up all this stuff. I got to think of all this backstory. Meanwhile, there I am, like having 30 different conversations, switching back and forth. I had 5 different personas who I was, having 10 to 15 different conversations with different guys. And sometimes you have to keep notes, but it's all just like boom, boom, boom. Like you're keeping track. I'm like, it's like flipping channels in your brain. There's something about it that I was like so naturally good at it, because it stops, like the filthy messages was a component of it.
Yeah.
But once they like you, all they want to do is talk to you. So you can get that out of the way, and then they'll just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So it was really just like, for me, it was writing dialogue, creating characters, thinking of backstory, all the stuff I'm supposed to be learning in screenwriting class. When kids are like, I'm going to write Blade Runner 2 as my movie. It's like, well, you're a student. It's probably not a good idea. Maybe write something that's like based on a person's. Whereas I was just like sitting there every night for 6 hours a night from 9 to 3 in the morning, having multiple conversations with like weirdos and rich businessmen and strange things. So I look back now, all these years later, like, 30, like over 30 years later. And I was like, what a crazy experience that was. But it really helped. I look at it as just training for writing, honestly.
It's unbelievable. And now that iteration you talked of, I thought Anthony Minghella doing a version
Tom Ripley.
Of Ripley
is truly one of my favorite characters. I've read all those. I've read all the books, watched all the versions of the movies.
Same.
Purple Noon, American Friend.
Purple Noon is the first property I ever optioned as a young actor.
Wow. You would have been such a good Tom. And I would have loved to see you with wow.
I know.
Wow. I mean, you could have been Dickie, but you as Tom, my God. Alain Delon, you were perfect for Tom Ripley.
I never figured out a way to do it, but that was someday. I love that. I love that genre.
I've read all 5 books. It's like Patricia Highsmith is one of my favorite writers. The only book she ever wrote without a murder was Price of Salt, Carol. It's the only one, the love story. Every other book she ever wrote had a murder in it.
It's good. So there's
an amazing writer.
Well, dude, this has been amazing. I knew we were going to have a great talk, but this has surpassed anything that I thought. We could go on another 5 hours. We'll have to come back. We have to come back and do like a whole deep dive in like what your favorite horror. Like I'd
love to.
I want to talk like Robert Eggers with you and like budgets and like my theory that the more special effects, the least good the movies are. I have a whole bunch of shit I want to run by you. Want to do a deep dive on Halloween. I mean,
there's a lot. There's a lot.
We'll do this again for sure.
We'll do it. But in the meantime, Let the Devil In. It's premiering August 31st. It's on MGM Plus. There's 4 episodes. It's docuseries. It's really fantastic. I mean, Brandon, who was there at the time, got people after his podcast, which was a huge hit. He got people heard it, and like people coming out for the first time since it happened. And at the end, you're like, I still sort of don't know. Like you could argue it one way or the other. Was this because how do you cut your head to the point of like almost total, like 3/4 of the way through your neck with like a tiny knife by yourself and let your head tip? It's like insane. There's sort of no explanation for it still.
I'm gonna call.
Crazy.
I'm gonna call Charlie Sheen up. See if I can come over and watch it in his bedroom.
Sounds good.
That's what I'm doing. All right, brother. Thanks so
All
much.
right, man. Talk to you soon.